Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lancaster Safety's Preventing Falls in Construction webinar. My name is Emily, and today I'm joined by one of our safety consultants, Dean. For too many years, we've seen workplace fall accidents as the leading cause of injuries and fatalities in the construction industry. Most of these tragic accidents could have been prevented. Falls have topped OSHA's most violated standards list for years now. This is a hazard that can be eliminated with the right controls. When employees understand just how serious and sometimes fatal these fall incidents can be, they'll start to adapt to the safety mindset and work to prevent them. So today we'll focus on fall prevention, fall protection methods, why falls are still happening, and lastly, getting into that safety mindset. So before we get started, here's just a little bit about us, Lancaster Safety. We are a full-service OSHA compliance firm that has a primary focus on making sure each employee gets home safely from work each day. Our slogan is taking safety beyond the standard, and this means we want to go above OSHA standards and make sure our clients are building a safety culture and being safe because they want to, not because they have to. We really want to provide top-notch service that makes an impact in people's lives. So most of you might be familiar with Dean. He's been with us on a lot of our webinars, but Dean, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about your safety background?
Sure can, Emily, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, especially on such a topic that affects people's lives, families, and livelihoods. As a young person, I got a chance to be a laborer on a church project. If you ever work on a project like that, the building committee can be like herding cats. But what's sad is that I was looking at the wrong place at the right time, and I watched the pastor get run over by a backhoe and killed him. The piece of equipment didn't have a backup alarm. The operator never saw the pastor never heard it coming. And it's not like the movies, and it'll stick with me always. But after the initial shock, it made me upset. It made me angry because it was 100% preventable. So an accident is an unplanned event. Well, I decided I'm not going to have any unplanned events. And so in close to 4.5 decades in the construction industry primarily, but also in general industry, the organizations I've worked with, we've had 6 recordable incidences, 5 sprains and a broken leg. We went almost 5 years, 2.5 million man hours worked with zero. So when people say it's dangerous, you can't be done. Yes, it can be. I know. I've done it. So I'm looking forward to discussing this very critical and unfortunately #1 cause fatalities and accidents in industry, right behind auto accidents across the country today.
All right, well, thanks for that, Dean. Let's get right into it here. So, like we said, fall safety is a topic that we could literally train on for hours. But what are we going to talk about today? A few things. We're going to talk about the nature of hazards in the work area and where we can find them. How are fall accidents occurring? We see that 1/3 of accidents in the construction industry are from falls. So, we're going to look at why and how. Our goal for today is to focus on prevention methods and give protection options so you can determine what might work for your company and how we can raise awareness to avoid fall accidents. Lastly, we'll show a few not so good pictures and discuss what hazards are contained in the picture. And we're also giving away a few safety posters, so just make sure not to miss those.
Great. Thank you, Emily. You are correct. We could spend hours and hours, but today we're going to focus on the greatest hits. And the first thing you want to look at is the nature of the hazards in your workplace. Where might those fall hazards be lingering? There are lots of places. I mean, even weather can pose fall hazards. If I'm working outside and it's wet or the sun is restricting someone's sight, obviously, anytime we're working at heights, a crowded construction job site, noisy job sites. And so the key is we need to look at where employees need to be protected from falls. So working in or on hoist areas where materials are being moved, ramps, walkways, and runways, areas where holes are present and maybe for utilities and ductwork or stairwells, elevators. We want to make sure people don't trip or step into holes. Excavation is one of the most dangerous things that's done in the construction industry. And it's not just falls, but also caught in or between for cave-ins. Anytime we're around dangerous equipment. And lastly, wall openings. The key is any area, and OSHA asks that 6 feet or more above a walking working surface be protected for workers to be able to be safe. So let's take a look at how fall accidents occur specifically. First, unprotected sides, wall openings, and floor holes. Almost every project site has unprotected sides and edges, leading edges, where floors are being constructed, wall openings, doors, windows, cross corridors, or floor holes at some point. If we're not protected from sight, injuries from falls or falling objects may result, resulting from simple sprains and strains to concussions and death. A second area of focus would be scaffold. Scaffold temporary work platforms give us a great way to be able to work at heights temporarily. But we know that working with heavy equipment and building materials in a limited space of a scaffold is difficult. Without fall protection or safe access, scaffolding becomes very hazardous. Improperly constructed scaffolds can result in injuries ranging again from sprains, cuts, and death. Third, unguarded protruding steel reinforcing steel bars used in concrete. Yes, we know we use that to provide tensile strength, and unguarded protruding rebar are hazardous. If you just stumble onto an unguarded rebar, you can impale yourself, serious injuries, or even death. I watched a person fall off a ladder and run their forearm through a number 5 rebar that was not capped properly. I passed out from the pain. An ironworker came along and cut the rebar with a chop saw, and they carried him off with a tourniquet over to the emergency room to pull the rebar out of his arm. I'm glad I wasn't there to see that. And also, misuse of portable ladders. Ladders are a common tool that we use every day on project sites, and you risk falling if portable ladders are not safely positioned each time they're used. When you're on a ladder, it can move or slip from supports. You can also lose balance while getting on or off an unsteady ladder. Again, falls from ladders can cause injuries ranging from sprains to death. According to OSHA, 40% of fatalities were from heights of over 40 feet. 1/4 of all fatalities ranged in heights of 11 to 20 feet, and 25% were from heights of 20 to 30 feet. The rest of the 10% were 10 foot or less. So just because you're not that far off the ground does not mean you won't get killed.
Did you know that fatalities from falls from elevation are the leading cause of death for construction employees? Preventing falls in construction is such an important topic that OSHA leads an annual initiative of a national safety stand down to raise awareness on the dangers of falls in construction. While this is a voluntary event, Lancaster Safety participates each year and encourages businesses to do the same. We take the entire month of May to highlight falls in construction and how we can work to get every employee home safely each day. So the content on the following slides provides information in conjunction with OSHA's National Safety Stand Down to prevent falls in construction. Let's join together to stop falls and save lives.
Thank you, Emily. Last year, every working day, 15 people were killed at work. Of those 15 people, 10 or 11 were in construction. Of those, 4 or 5 were from falls. So fall hazards are common at construction sites, but even worse, fall-related injuries, which can amount between 1,000 and 1,500 per day, are preventable. There's 2 main ways we can address fall hazards. First and best is fall prevention. Let's prevent workers from falling by using engineering controls, guardrails, hole covers, or restraint systems. If we can't do that, or in addition to, let's provide fall arrest and rescue services. So this prevents injury during and after a fall by using personal fall arrest systems, safety nets, or having an effective rescue plan in place before starting the work. The key is recognizing fall hazards and planning to control them before work begins. This is critical, and it helps determine the best method or methods and equipment for protecting workers during construction activities at heights. Emergency response planning will identify necessary emergency response training and critical resources, such as trained on-site fall arrest rescue teams, rescue equipment. A number of OSHA standards contain provisions for protecting workers from falls. In the construction industry, you want to take a look at 29 CFR 1926, which is the construction industry standard for safety and health. Look in sections 500 to 503 for fall protection and construction. You can look at section 760 for steel erection. You can look at section 954 for power transmission and distribution towers, as well as 1423 for cranes and derricks. And there is an Appendix B for a complete list of OSHA standards on fall protection. This is obviously the federal standard. If you are in a approved state plan, of which over half the states and territories do have, may have some different standards, but those standards must be at least as effective and stringent as the federal OSHA requirements. Again, this is a minimum. You can take a look at more information about your state plan if you have one. It's available on the OSHA website at www.osha.gov. Emily?
Yeah, so we mentioned that one of the four top reasons that falls occur in construction are because of improper use of portable ladders. So, by following some of the basic guidelines that Dean's about to give you, we can significantly reduce the risk of falls from any type of ladder. So, Dean, I'll hand it over to you for some of these safety tips.
Great, thanks, Emily. Most of this is common sense, but I think if common sense were common, we probably wouldn't even be here. So again, it's a good idea just to review. Yes, I know people are groaning about this. Better get another cup of coffee or something like that. But this is really important. So let's start by discussing ladder position safety tips. First, if you have a portable ladder, make sure that the side rails extend at least 3 feet above the landing. This is one of the most often cited violations of OSHA standards that OSHA catches each year. We want to make sure we use the so-called 4-to-1 rule. Take a look at the poster. In the example, you'll see the wall that the ladder is leaning against is 16 foot tall, 20-foot ladder. The 4-1 safety rule basically says, I want to position the base of the ladder 1 foot away from the wall for every 4 feet in height. So again, 16 feet divided by 4 is basically 4 feet. So I'll place the base of the ladder at 4 feet. If you're more of a geometry person, take a look. We have a right angle where the base meets the wall, 90 degrees. If you look at the foot of the ladder, that tends to be 70 to 75 degrees, and the upper portion about 15 to 20 degrees. So it looks like an isosceles triangle, if you remember that from old geometry class. Good way to think about it. In addition, when you start to climb or descend a ladder, always use 3 points of contact. 2 feet in one hand or 2 hands in 1 foot. Now, I know it looks funny when you're doing it, but it's a great way to make sure you don't fall. We also want to make sure we face the ladder when we're climbing up or down. We want to make sure the ladder is secure. So again, at the top, I want to make sure I secure the side rails. I may use a grab device if I can't use the 3-foot extension. There are ladders and devices available that have these built in, or you may have to come up with your own, especially if you have a job-made ladder. You can do a job-made ladder as long as it meets the requirements, minimum requirements that OSHA sets. We also want to make sure we have the proper ladder for the job we're doing. So we want to make sure the weight on the ladder will not cause it to slip off its support. You never want to stand on the top rung, second rung, or bucket bracket. It's not meant to be a step. We all know the manufactured ladders have signage all over the place, but sometimes people forget. We also know that balance is important, so be mindful of carrying items that might cause you to lose your balance. Just like any tool, take a look at the ladder before you actually use it. Every time. Do you see any cracks, broken parts, missing hardware, anything like that? Get the right ladder for the right job. Make sure that the ladders we use at home stay at home. They're not designed for construction work. So take a look at the label. That will help you. And make sure that the ladders you use or build comply with OSHA design standards. You can find more information on this in the construction standard looking in section 1053. We're covering the basics here. All the things we discussed today are normally conducted by Lancaster Safety as part of their training topics, much more comprehensive. Oh, and lastly, the belt buckle rule. If you're on a ladder and you lean over to one side or the other, you don't want your belt buckle to pass over the line of that vertical side rail. If you do that, it's a chance of you falling. Best bet, climb down, reposition the ladder, and climb back up. Only takes a couple minutes, but it's a lot less expensive and painful than taking a fall. Scaffolding is a wonderful tool that we use as a temporary work platform. Stationary scaffolds, suspended scaffold, aerial lifts, all allow us to work at height. The key with scaffolding is to make sure they are constructed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Typically, you'll find that a guardrail system is required upon all open sides and ends of platforms. Oftentimes, suspended scaffolds will use guardrails as well as a personal fall arrest system. We want to use at least a guardrail or personal fall arrest system for all scaffolding anytime that scaffold is 10 feet or more above a lower level. We want to make sure we provide safe access to scaffolds by ladders or climbing out of windows or other areas. There's details, again, available in the OSHA standard, as well as appendices showing some line drawings. And we always want to access scaffolding by these means of access. Do not climb the cross bracing. The cross bracing intent, as shown in this picture, this is a no-no. It is designed to help square true and plumb the scaffold. It is not fall protection. We mentioned protruding rebar, again, used oftentimes to get tensile strength into concrete. It's pretty standard. be it steel or fiberglass, we want to make sure we guard all protruding ends of the steel rebar with caps, wooden troughs, or bend the bar such the exposed ends are no longer upright. Anyone working at height that could be above an exposed rebar, we want to make sure fall protection and prevention is the first line of defense against impalement. OSHA standard requires that rebar, quote, be guarded to eliminate the hazard of impalement, unquote. Not all guards provide that level of protection. In some circumstances, the force of a fall can cause the rebar to push clear through a plastic cap and still impale a worker, or the worker could be impaled by the rebar and capped together. Make sure that you utilize rebar caps designed to provide impalement protection. Oftentimes they'll contain a steel or polycarbonate reinforcement inside of them. So yeah, please have the folks use those Mountain Dew cans and put them in the trash, not on top of the rebar. Another area of issue is openings or holes. Typically guardrails, safety nets, and personal fall arrest systems are oftentimes used. Again, if I can fall to a lower level, and that means walking on the ground into an excavation or from an upper level into a lower level, anytime I can be exposed to a fall of 6 feet or more, I want to use one of these particular systems. Emily, can you give us some more information about prevention for openings and holes?
Yeah, absolutely. So for existing structures, you want to survey the site before working and then continually audit as work continues. Guard or cover any openings or holes immediately. You want to cover or guard floor holes as soon as they are created during new construction. Construct all floor hole covers so they will effectively support 2 times the weight of employees, equipment, and materials that may be imposed on the cover at any one time. So, in general, it's better to use fall prevention systems such as guardrails and then fall protection systems such as safety nets or fall arrest devices because they provide more positive safety means.
And Emily, in addition to that, the covers, in addition to carrying 2 times any imposed loads, typically should be marked and should be secured so they won't easily move. If you decide to choose guardrails systems, typically the top guardrail should be 42 inches above the walking working surface, plus or minus 3 inches. You can always add more if necessary for specific types of construction. Mid-rail, as the name implies, is typically halfway between the top rail and the working level. And oftentimes a toe board, typically a 1x4 or similar, can be done at the bottom. This prevents materials or tools from being kicked over the edge. We want to make sure that there are no openings in the guardrail system more than 19 inches wide. The top rail must be capable of withstanding a force of 200 pounds applied any outward, downward direction. And on ramps and runways, we want to make sure guardrails are erected at each unprotected side. Again, you can add more to this as the project requires. Typically, you can use stress grade lumber. I can also use Schedule 40 pipe, angle iron. So there are options materially on how to construct guardrails. The diagram on the left gives you additional information. On the right, you see a safety net system. Typically, safety nets should be provided anytime I'm working at more than 25 feet above ground level. They must extend at least 8 feet beyond the edge of the work surface, and they can extend more depending on the level I'm protecting. They should be placed with sufficient clearance so you don't contact the ground. They must be inspected at least once per week. And on the boundary rope must withstand at least 5,000 pounds of force. When someone falls into this and catches them, it will put a strain. We also want to make sure that the openings are no more than 6x6, as well as inspect it. Take a look. You'll see inside of this net on the picture, we have, looks like a hose, some other material in there. We don't want to fall on that, so that should be removed before work is allowed. By the way, safety nets are becoming more popular in residential construction when constructing framing. It'll be placed oftentimes in a stairwell area or between floor rafters when people are constructing or placing pre-engineered trusses. Another option that OSHA permits is something called a controlled access zone, sometimes called a limited access zone. And what this is a work zone designated for only qualified and trained personnel to enter. Typically, it's delineated by ropes, wires, or chain. It must be created no less than 6 feet from any edge and no more than 25 feet away from an edge. You want to flag this with high visibility material every 6 feet. Controlled access zone is a very popular option when doing leading edge work constructing floors. Another option you have is called warning lines. Warning lines, again, can be made of rope or wire or chain. They're used to warn employees of an unprotected edge. We have to place these no less than 6 feet away from the edge. They must be able to stand a tripping force of 16 pounds. And lastly, no lower than 34 inches, no higher than 39 inches. Again, this is a warning. In some cases, this may be an option for you where you don't have other options that are more desirable. OSHA provides a lot of options for fall protection. Take a look and see what option or options work best for your project site. There are a lot of ways to do this, and OSHA asks that you select the one or ones that are provide the most protection for the workers at the particular site you're given. You know what? I tell you what, I think it's time for a safety quiz. Emily, what do you think?
I agree. Let's take a quick break for our first Insta Safety quiz here. So the question is, in construction, and we talked about this, fall protection is required after working at what height? 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, or 8 feet? So you can put your answer in the chat box below.
No, 5, 6, 7, or 8 feet. And the correct answer?
Is 6 feet.
Very good. By the way, let's say you decide, you know what, I want to provide fall protection for my workers at 4 feet or 2 feet. Is that permitted? Yes, it is. You can make it more stringent. However, you can't say, you know, I don't like the 6 feet. How about 8 or 10? No. So 6 feet is the maximum height. You can always go less than that, if you will, to provide fall protection.
Good to know.
There are a couple other fall protection options. First is a safety monitoring system. Typically, this is done in roofing work, and no greater than a 412 pitch or a 50 foot in any dimension is typically the application. The safety monitor cannot have any other job duties. Typically, they monitor the safety employees. How do they do that? They're there because they're on the same level as the work taking place, close enough to be within eye shot and earshot to orally communicate with everyone there. Easily identifiable, again, through high vis, etc., and employees should follow any directions given by the safety monitor. This sounds like it's a fairly easy job. It is not. It is very stressful, especially when we have a number of workers. One of the more popular options for fall protection is a personal fall arrest system. Typically, this, as we'll see, has some details, specifics. Oftentimes, we will use D-rings and snap hooks. We want to make sure that, as well as our anchorage point, has a tensile strength of 5,000 pounds or more. Also, a personal fall arrest system should limit a person's free fall to no more than 6 feet. And personal fall arrest systems, commonly called PFAS, when stopped to fall, should limit the maximum arresting force to 1,800 pounds when used with a body harness. The whole idea of the 5,000 pounds, by the way, is, wait a minute, Dean, I don't know any 5,000 pound people. I don't know any 1,000 pound people. Well, this gets back to the idea of applied physics. I'm 6 foot tall. If I start to trip and fall, it takes me about a half second, 6/10 of a second to realize I'm doing that. If I hit the ground, don't hit anything on the way down, it takes me about 2 seconds. I'm on the ground. So a 6 foot fall, walking straight on flat on a surface, 2 seconds, I'm on the ground. I'm going 13 miles an hour. That's why that 5,000 pounds. When you fall, you get that force equals mass times acceleration. Oh no, high school physics. Well, gee, if they taught it to us this way, I probably would have remembered it, right? So Emily, why don't you share with us the ABCs of fall arrest systems?
Yes, so fall arrest systems have multiple components that come together to protect workers from falls. And so this includes the anchorage or tie off point that you connect to, the anchorage connector or strap used to tie off with, the body wear or full body harness, and then lastly, the connecting device, which is the shock absorbing lanyard or retractable lifeline. So equipment must be inspected before each use for tears or other wear, deformed parts such as D-rings and snap hooks, dirt, grease, or other substances that could affect the function of the equipment, any appropriate labeling, and then freely moving parts.
One item too, you'll notice it says in the orange box, yellow, down there, annual inspection by a competent person. The competent person typically in construction is one who, by training, experience, education, has the ability to identify safety problems or potential and has the authority to take corrective action. The competent person for fall protection has additional requirements. So you'll find that even though the term competent person is used throughout OSHA, especially in fall protection and excavations, the competent person in those areas has some specific requirements to look at. Obviously, fall protection when used incorrectly can be more dangerous than not using any protection at all. Workers get a false sense of security, and they may not be as careful if they would be if they weren't using any fall protection. I think it's time for another instant safety quiz.
All right, let's do it. Here's our second one. So, again, we talked about this. Where do the most falls occur in construction? On scaffolds, ladders, platforms, or roofs? And again, you can put your answer down in the chat box below. So, falls from scaffolds and roofs are more likely to happen in construction. Dean, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, I think the issue, especially, it's interesting to note on scaffolding. Again, properly erected, it gives you a good work platform, and I think we get used to it and get complacent and don't think about we're on the third floor or the 60th floor or whatever we're working on. In addition, roofs, especially low slope roofs, that's with a 412 pitch or less. Again, the same thing. We tend to be complacent. Oh, it's not that steep. It's not that bad. And yet, if you look, the number of citations, the number of accidents, fatalities off of low slope roofs is greater than a steep slope roof, which OSHA defines as a 412, greater than a 412 pitch. And I think it's because it's more visible. We're more cognizant or recognize the fact, hey, this is 812, 912, whatever, and I need to be careful here. So I think that's a great part of it. So again, just a constant reminder, it doesn't matter. You're up at a height. It doesn't matter whether it's a flat pitch or 10, 12 or whatever you're working on. Very important. Just be aware. And again, make sure you take care and be deliberate. I've never had an accident. I'm a highly trained professional. I've been doing this for years. Something I do all the time. Didn't think anybody'd notice. And my favorite, let's just get her done. I'm a journeyman. I haven't got injured. And then there's that 3-letter word, yet. And that's the key. That is the key. You can do it 1,000 times and maybe the next one that gets you. So you conduct safety and health trainings frequently, don't you? And I'm sure you've heard some of these comments. I've never had an accident, these kind of things. It's a common mindset. And it's one that often leads to complacency and accidents. The key is this. The safety leaders need to set a mindset. I don't care if this week, at the end of the week, is your last day, you're retiring after decades of service, or you're just starting a new position, or you're just starting an apprenticeship program, or it's your first project. Safety leaders need to set an example. So the key here is that companies need to have full buy-in to safety to really make it work and keep everyone safe in the job. So it's not just do this, do that. We need to make sure everyone understands why it's important, and believe and understand is necessity. So how do we do that? Well, it's common sense again, but it's not common. In order for people to listen, people need to know you care before they're going to care about what you say. We also know that this industry is a huge team sport. No one of us can do all of it. So we need to work with each other, get feedback, get opinions, find ways to get everyone involved. One of my favorite tactics was with a new hire to partner them with an experienced person in our companies. We did a lot of general contracting and subcontracting work. And it was interesting to note that, again, the experienced worker would really help that new hire come to speed, shorten the learning curve. It's just tremendous. And both of them got a lot of satisfaction. But the new worker, because they didn't know what they were looking at, oftentimes would see things the experienced worker didn't or had forgotten about. Again, it's just human nature to do that. I also think it's important to recognize a job well done. Attaboy, attagirls. It can be tangible. It can be a comment in front of all hands. But praise that. It's human nature, isn't it, to point out what's wrong? Point finger. That's easy. It's easy to criticize and critique. What we need to do is, yes, address those issues, but just as important, if not more important, point out things that are right, the good things. Point those out. Make sure people are aware of it. You'd be amazed at how the mindset changes. I've always tried to be consistent, hold everyone accountable, be it a new hire, a subordinate, a peer, or even a superior. Because again, if all hands aren't involved with this, it's not going to work. Our purpose is not to blame, belittle anyone, even if they follow the basic rules. If the idea is to critique the behavior. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, I always try to do it with humility. I'll tell stories about times when I or others weren't safe. This is what happened, or this is what almost happened, and how things could have gone way wrong, or maybe they did. So let's utilize that and share what our experience is and encourage this. Again, I can tell you from example, you can get to zero recordables. Boy, is that fun, especially when you see the reduction in your insurance and workers' comp bills. Boy, I really like that. So I think a part of this, and it's very helpful, and I would encourage everyone on your project site, what's wrong with this picture? So Emily, let's take a look at some examples of what's wrong with this picture.
All right. So one of our clients actually saw this interestingly constructed scaffolding. Well, we'll use that term, interesting. And they took a picture of it and sent it to us. And, we appreciate them sharing the picture for training purposes, but this is 100% not the way to properly construct scaffolding.
So take a look. What questions would you ask? I would look at this and say, okay, wait a minute. You're calling this scaffolding, but yet I don't see any cross braces. I don't see any boards. I don't see any guardrails or anything else around here. And ladders are temporary work platforms, aren't they? And you're using that to hold up a sectional ladder, which is definitely not scaffold planking. So again, ask those questions. Well, that's what we had to work with. Well, we're going to find another way, aren't we?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. I just see an accident waiting to happen here.
absolutely.
All right, so now in this picture, we have a worker putting on a fall arrest harness backwards. And that might be easier to put it on that way, but it's not the correct way to wear a harness. And it's not going to give you any proper fall rescue if you should need it.
Exactly right. Obviously, the snap hook and D-ring should go to this D-ring. It should be between the shoulder blades and the middle of the back. If someone does fall, what this then does distribute the force of the fall over the entire body, which lessens likely serious injury and death. Whoa! What do you see?
Well, I think it's funny. I see the stop sign as in to tell this guy, please stop doing what you're doing.
Right. And so we have a ladder that this person is using to access the scaffold. We don't have built-in ladders or hook on or anything. We don't see guardrails around all open side and platforms. We see him hoisting himself up. He's even wearing as a harness and a lanyard here, which I don't know what he's hooked onto. Hopefully not the scaffolding, so he'll pull that over with him. Also, I will tell you this. Oftentimes in a photo like this tells me more than just a specific situation with improper access for the scaffold, and that is housekeeping. No, nobody expects to eat off the floor on a construction project unless you're building a clean room or something. The point being is that oftentimes housekeeping can be a real good indication of a safety concern. So we take a look here, and there's quite a lot going on. No, nobody expects you to pick up everything the instant you produce scrap. But again, I find a thoughtful and a good plan for effective housekeeping oftentimes will prevent a lot of these kinds of things from being even thought of, let alone done. What about this picture? We see this a lot, not just residentially. We see this a lot in all types of construction of roofers. I know it's a tough job. It has to be done correctly, but this is just unacceptable. There are too many ways that we can put up personal fall arrest systems, self-retracting lifelines, uh, maybe an aerial lift. There's all kinds of options, guardrails that I can do to protect this worker because all it takes is one slip and he's going to be on the ground.
So now here we have some examples of what not to do while you're working. You never want to disconnect from the lifeline. You don't want to work around unprotected openings or skylights. Don't use defective equipment. If you know that it's ineffective, take it out of service immediately. Don't stand on top or on the top step of a step ladder. Never place the ladder on unlevel footing. You don't want to overreach. Don't use a ladder on top of a scaffold. I feel like that one's a no brainer. Don't use a ladder on top of a scaffold. Don't climb on the cross braces. And lastly, never stand on the guardrails.
Again, Emily, the key with this is you see anything like this, again, don't startle a person or yell at them. Get them to understand, look, we're going to need to do this correctly. We need you. We know how challenging it is right now to be able to find qualified people to do the work in all levels. We cannot afford to have our good people that are doing this good work to get injured or killed. So I guess 5 basic ways to prevent workplace falls. First, again, when working at heights, we want to make sure the job is done correctly, quality, but also done safely. So for most tasks in construction, if you're working 6 feet or more above a lower level, fall protection is required. Only difference will be if you're working off a scaffolding, that requirement increases to 10 feet. Second, make a plan prior to starting the work. Anticipate, do a survey, job hazard analysis. Where are points of falls? Where are anchorage points? Again, the competent person will understand this and help do this up front. By being more deliberate and taking our time, we actually get it done faster with better quality and safely. Third, right tools for the right job. Make sure you have the proper equipment. So I want to make sure employees have the correct equipment, be it scaffolding, ladders, personal protective equipment, any other necessary tool or equipment to get the job done. We want to make sure that this equipment does not pose additional hazards, like using a defective ladder or an improperly erected scaffold. Fourth, train all employees on setup, inspection, use of tools, equipment, PPE. You can do this with training, toolbox talks, posters, numerous other resources are available to ensure that employees understand the hazards of the work that they are exposed to or the potential for being exposed to. OSHA does not ask us to consider every possibility. That's not possible. That's all we do. It says anything that could cause or likely cause injury, illness, or death. And again, falls, if we can correct this, boy, what a difference we would make. So include training in everything. In every progress meeting agenda we ever created, we always had start time, end time, submittals, because that deals with the progress of the work, permissions so we can keep going, and safety. So it's a simple matter of starting to use the word safe, safety, safely, adding that on to everything you do. And lastly, when you use this equipment, it's determined that the personal fall arrest system is necessary. Make sure that your harness, lanyard, and anchorage point are inspected before each use. Look for excessive fraying, cuts, burns, or cracks. Look for loose anchorage points. Don't tie off to conduit, scaffolding. If any deficiencies are found, make sure it's taken out of service, report it so it can be corrected. There's a lot of ways to get this right. And you know what? Let's start right now. And if we're doing well, let's do even better. Emily.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation on preventing falls in the construction industry in conjunction with OSHA's National Safety Stand Down to prevent falls in construction. Shown here are some of the certificates of recognition that we have received in previous years for our annual participation. So head on over to OSHA's website to get yours today. OSHA's website is a valuable tool for companies to reference standards, training requirements, and plenty of other resources and publications. Again, that's www.osha.gov/stopfallsstanddown.
So, Dean, we have a couple questions here that actually came in during our session. So, I'm wondering if you can help me answer some of these.
Do my best.
All right. So, the first one, do employers have to buy high visibility vests for their employees? And then, if it gets torn or damaged, does the employee have to buy another one?
That's a great question. Typically, high visibility vests are designed where someone could be mistaken for some type of barrel, cone, or other device. So typically, we consider this when we're doing infrastructure work, grading, subgrading, those kinds of things. I recommend high vis for equipment operators. I recommend them for scaffold workers, any place where equipment and personnel can meet each other up close and personal. So typically the high visibility vest, if it gets torn, the key is it dysfunctional? Typically they get worn. Over time they get dull or they no longer identify the person, especially the lime green or orange, which are most popular. There's different types and kinds, but typically a person must be recognizable as a person when wearing high visibility from 1,000 feet away or less. So that will be the key indicator. You can talk to your vendors that will help you with this. They have cards and other devices that will help you make sure that you have the right high visibility for the particular work you're doing.
Okay, good to know. Somebody else asked, does this webinar count as training?
Yes, it does, because again, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. So the purpose is you have this documentation. That's why it's always good to get the certificate, because we know if we can't measure it, we can't manage it. So this is another way that you can reinforce safety rules. Absolutely.
Okay. One more that came in. Somebody said some of these hazards seem unavoidable. So does OSHA give any leeway if there is an unavoidable accident?
Well, it's interesting. I've heard that comment made, and they don't recognize anything as unavoidable. because an accident is an unplanned event. So that no question, we have a lot of projects that are tight, especially in urban areas or mixed use construction, or we have a variety of equipment and personnel all over the place. The key is that it is avoidable, and it is avoidable. Yes, it is. So we want to do our best in the pre-job meeting and a site visit, in a pre-construction meetings to set the tone, not just for the schedule and the quality, creating that teamwork atmosphere so everybody can get their work done, but also the safety part of it. That just simply safety is not an option. Uh, it's required, but more importantly, let's exceed the OSHA standards. Let's be a rock star when it comes to safety. It's really simple. You'll get your good people will stick around a lot longer. You'll also find the pocketbook is a lot heavier because you're not paying insurance claims, workers' comp claims, spending time on investigations, etc. If you will, just I can tell you from my experience, for every dollar I spent on safety, I documented 7 that I got back. Yes, 7. That's a no-brainer. On the other hand, the 6 recordables I've had in my history, all which were minor, for every dollar I spent on the direct first aid or healthcare, by the time I was done, I spent 20. You heard that correctly, 20. So people say, wow, this safety stuff's expensive. It just gets in the way. You think it's expensive? Try an accident. You kidding me? So no, there's no such thing, if you will, as, hey, it's just unavoidable. It's construction. People get hurt. That's not the way to think about it. Or, you know what? Something could happen. They could get hurt doing it that way. The correct way to look at it is they will get hurt doing it that way. It's just a matter of time. So by getting everyone involved, from the new hire to your oldest grizzled veteran, from the CEO and president down to the person that empties the dumpster and waste baskets, everybody's involved in this on that job site, and not just on the job site, but in the home office and everywhere. Oh, and by the way, take the stuff home with you. When our youngest son got his first place, he asked me, Dad, can I borrow the mower? I don't have one yet. Sure, no problem. So I dropped it off. His daughter at the time, Grace, was 4, and she was on the back porch. So he had the mower. He pulled the cord, started up, and he heard, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. Well, you come running, don't you? So he did. Grace, what's the matter? And he said, Dad, she looked me dead in the eye, 4 years old now. Looked me dead. I said, Daddy, you're not wearing safety glasses. Grandpa says wear safety glasses when you mow. Yes. Take it home with you. You never know.
Yeah, that's a great story, and it's true. I mean, everybody needs to be involved, no matter age, job, any of it. Everybody needs to be involved. So that's great information, Dean. As always, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate all of you attending this presentation on preventing falls in construction.
Emily, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure sharing this time with you today, and hopefully all the folks listening in will get some ideas to keep things getting better and better, and go out there and be safe. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, as a reminder, we're a nationwide OSHA consulting firm that offers safety and health training on site or through our learning management system. We can help you with OSHA inspections, audits, and develop written programs and much more. So, if you have any further questions or interested in any of these services, just reach out to us after the webinar at 888 403 6026. And as always, follow us on social media for more news, updates, and safety information, or you can provide us with any feedback that you might have on Yelp, Google, or Facebook. Again, we really appreciate your time and that we hope you'll take advantage of our monthly safety and health webinars. Everyone's always invited to attend and they're always free. So just visit our website for more information. Again, Dean, thank you so much. You always teach me something in these webinars, so I'm happy to host these with you.
My pleasure, because the day I don't learn something new is the day I quit. And so we're constantly doing this. It's so important. And as I like to say, let's meet or exceed the expectations of our customers. Let's make sure we hit the time, hit the budget, and let's do it safely. If we hit those 4 goals, we will have a successful project, a successful company, and enough fun to last a lifetime.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, to everyone listening, we will see you next month.